when Brian was doing crew, that was when he was 15. We saw at the end of that year, just noticed some, I think I'd actually noticed something the year earlier when we were at Moclips, just that he wasn't kind of developing quite the same as like his cousin was. And I just thought that was because he was getting tall and skinny, and you know, I think parents kind of, or maybe everybody, just kind of discounts things, or you don't want to look for trouble if it's not there.
I don't know, the first thing I noticed was, it may have been like a couple years before that, when I was like drying off after taking my shower. I noticed there's like a strange bump on my shoulder. I didn't really know what it was, but it wasn't like a bump, and it was just kind of there when I like held my arm out. And so I kind of mentioned that to my mom, but she didn't really think it was anything.
He and Mariel were goofing around, and I noticed something was different. And so we started the whole process of figuring out what that was.
So then we kept going to the doctors throughout the summer, and this was just after I finished my first year of rowing. And so we kind of think maybe, or maybe not, the intensive rowing had accentuated the symptoms, and that's how I noticed.
That was a 3-month experience that I wouldn't wish on anybody, really. We had a lot of misdiagnoses. We went through a lot of appointments, lots of trials and errors on things that were said and done, and recommended and not recommended, and red herrings kind of leading you off, oh, 100% this is what the problem is, and then you go home and you're your own doctor trying to figure out, well, that really, maybe he's 100% sure this is it, but it doesn't make any sense, you know. After
2 or 3 months of going to the doctor, finally one doctor suggested that it could be fascioscapulohumeral muscular dystrophy, or FSH, and he suggested we do a blood test, and then the results came back. And by this time I kind of figured, well, this seems like a more logical idea than any of the other diagnoses we had received. So I was pretty much at this point, I had decided in my mind that yes, it was going to come back positive that I had FSH. So then it did come back, and my mom was like, we got the results.
I guess when we first got the diagnosis and that, I don't think anything worse could have happened to us, or at least I couldn't imagine it at the time. Bleak is even too kind of a word for how I felt.
And my parents have been tested, so we know that I am a random mutation.
While FSH isn't life-threatening, it's debilitating. And, you know, to have to constantly maneuver around your, you know, whatever is wrong with you.
No matter what happens to his body, and you know, he has the same, it'll never affect his head. He'll still have the same sense of humor. He'll never lose his ability to, you know, be bright and to, you know, do what he wants to do with his mind. He'll have to cope with his body and its changes. And, you know, I would wish that would be otherwise, but that's kind of the hand he was dealt, I guess.
There's always a fear of like, what's going to happen 10 or 20 years down the road, you know? And I really don't know, but I know that if I continue to try to take care of myself, and, you know, as we get more research about this disease, and as people, you know, I don't know, we're learning more things every day about science, and I feel like very hopeful that maybe in 20 years or 10 years or maybe even sooner, hopefully sooner, we'll have some answers in how to treat people.
I'm afraid that if he doesn't do certain things to take care of himself, he'll lose more physical strength that he'll never regain, you know, and it's just not it's not something I'm willing to take a chance on.
And I know that I'll probably get weaker as time goes on, because that's how it goes. and that's what I have. But there's no avoiding that at this point, and there hasn't been any avoiding it. So it's one thing that you just kind of have to accept and then do what you can do when you can do it.
It's hard when you're a kid growing up with something that makes you different. You know, you can't do certain things in PE, and like certain things make you more tired, and you can't, you know, have a huge smile in your photographs, and you know, it can be irritating when you're that young.
It's not a very generic disease, and it seems like everyone has different experiences with it.
As I've gotten older, I've decided that I really want to know more about it. I want to be on top of things. I want to know as much as I can, and I want to help as much as I can.
One of the first questions was, well, what do we do now? And the response was, well, we'd like to see him maybe once every year or so. And it was like, there's nothing else beyond that? Is there some medication we should be using? Is there some program he should be on? And there was really nothing. They said, no, there's nothing to be done. You can, you know, just come and we'll watch and monitor his progress. So then looking on the internet, we found that there are a lot of people trying different things, but there really wasn't anything that was proven to work. There wasn't any specific treatments or even recommendations on how much exercise or how little exercise would be good for somebody with this condition. There was really very little known about it. So at that point it was, well, if we can't do anything about helping him right now in that respect with medications or treatments or program, really the only thing left for us to do was try to raise money to help fund more research that would identify some program or some medication or treatment or even a cure for the condition.
And I wasn't totally, you know, excited about telling everybody in the world that I have FSH, but I felt that since no one was really doing anything currently, it was more important to do this.
For a long time, I didn't even know the name exactly. Like, it seemed like this huge name, you know, facioscapulohumeral muscular dystrophy. Like, how the hell do you say that? You know, like, it's like a tongue twister. And it seems so frightening when it's phrased like that. I mean, it wasn't until I saw that it was, you know, broken down to FSH that it made me feel like I could even approach it.
The MDA was started in the 1950s. 56 years have gone by that they really haven't got cures for a lot of things still. But then and so then I can be kind of down, I guess, and think, you know, why should I think this is going to impact more? But I know that we've got very smart guys working on it. Our ability to learn things are changing so fast now. Our science ability now compared to the 50s is monumentally different. And so I don't think that, you know, I have to look and say, well, 50 years we've done nothing, you know, what's the chance that something's going to happen now? I think maybe they will. They know so much more than they have. But I'm thinking more in the 10-year span, that maybe in 10 years they'll have something that puts a stop to FSH or keeps people at least as strong as they are at that moment. Doesn't eradicate it, doesn't turn back the clock necessarily, doesn't cure it, but it at least helps them stop the progress. And maybe in 10 years we'll have something like that is, I guess, my best hope.
Realizing that while you may have something, it's not going to change who you are. It's not who you are. Like, that took me a long time to realize, is that I may have this disease, but it's not who I am. And who I am is a lot of things, but it's not that.
The Paul Wellstone Centers for Muscular Dystrophy were established, and there were 3 of them. And since our work has started, we've been able to fund the very first FSH research projects that ever has been done at the University of Washington. University of Washington is one of those designated centers for muscular dystrophy research, and no one ever at the university prior to these centers being established have ever done FSH studies. So we've established that as a focus, or another focus, at this center. we've funded one project, and now we've funded 2 projects for FSH at the University of Washington. One of our also goals is to try to reach out and form alliances with groups, and we're doing that with the University of Washington. We've had those researchers as consultants. They're on our board of scientific advisory board.
This past December we we co-sponsored a research conference in Seattle that brought together researchers from around the world in FSH, a small number of researchers, to share what they're doing and brainstorm about where they can go and what direction FSH research is headed. And that's a great thing, to bring the researchers together and give them the opportunity to share what they're doing with other researchers in the field.
I do feel like a sense of pride when we talk to other people with FSH and they tell us, oh, you know, what you guys are doing makes me feel so hopeful, and thank you so much.
People have hope. You know, they have new hope that they didn't have before. You know, they see people coming, contributing money, donating for something that they thought was just forgotten, really, that nobody really cared about. And it'd be hard for us to quit doing it and leave them all kind of abandoned or forgotten again. So, you know, it is kind of something we've promised we're going to do.
When you help somebody else, you're actually helping yourself in a way, because you might not at first think so, but when you do something good for someone else, it makes you feel good, because then they're happy and then they're thankful to you.